You might think that it's only possible to achieve fame and fortune if you come from a good background. And sure, things like stage school, singing lessons, and dance practice all help to perfect that superstar image. But these celebrities are proving that hard work and determination alone are enough to succeed. Make sure to stick around until the end to hear about the celebrity who was so poor she wore potato sacks as a kid instead of clothes. Before we take you on a tale of inspirational rags to riches stories, make sure to like this video, subscribe to The Richest, and join our notification squad. Now let's get into 10 famous people who hustled from poor to rich. Nicki Minaj might currently have an estimated net worth of $85 million, but it hasn't always been that way. Although we might know her for her incredible singing skills and hustling ability, this megastar really was one who started from the bottom. Nicki was born in the Caribbean but grew up in Queens, New York. But it wasn't a happy childhood. Her father was a severe drug addict with a history of violence, and Nicki's mother was often at risk of harm. At one point, her father even set fire to her family home. But instead of letting her parents' failings get her down, Nicki used her poor and troubled childhood as motivation to do much better for herself. She said that her mother hadn't been able to be strong, so she would be instead. If she became a star, she could change her mother's life, and she absolutely succeeded. Now she's released a triple platinum album. She won Best Hip Hop Female at the annual BET Awards in 2010, and the money has just kept rolling in the whole time. And it doesn't look like she'll slow down anytime soon. Our next super rich celebrity was another who spent a lot of time crying during his childhood, but for a completely different reason. Football superstar Cristiano Ronaldo spent the first few years of his life struggling to get by, although he had a slightly more positive family upbringing. Cristiano was an unplanned child and the youngest in a humble family on the Portuguese island of Madeira. He lived in one of the island's poorest communities. His parents worked as a cook and a gardener, although his father was an alcoholic who also struggled with liver disease. Football was always part of Cristiano's life, and although he was skilled at a young age, he'd cry whenever he didn't have the ball. He really liked winning to the extent that his early teammates nicknamed him Crybaby. But this determination to succeed in his chosen sport pushed Cristiano to become the best of the best. By the age of 18, Cristiano was playing for one of the world's elite clubs and taking home more money than he'd ever seen in his life. While once his family might have struggled to feed 5 children, Cristiano's net worth of $450 million means it's no longer a problem for any of them. Cristiano might have had a difficult childhood financially, but at least he got to act like a kid and spend his days outside playing football. Unfortunately, the same thing can't be said for our next poor-turned-rich celebrity, Leighton Meester. Known for her role in the hit TV show Gossip Girl, as well as for her musical talents, Leighton's childhood was definitely unconventional. Leighton was actually born in federal prison while her mother was serving a sentence for drug trafficking. Her father was also locked away during this time. When her parents were released from prison, Leighton's childhood continued in a similar light of negativity. She claimed she could never relate to other children because while they were worrying about which game to play next, she was more concerned about whether her family had enough gas money or food. But luckily, Leighton's career took off at the young age of 10 and things started to improve. She signed with an agent and moved from Florida to New York City at age 14, moved again to Los Angeles, and began taking acting lessons. After finding her big break, she's now worth an estimated $6.5 million. Leighton isn't the only A-list actor who suffered from difficult early years as a kid. Jim Carrey, who you'll know from playing roles in everything from Bruce Almighty to Batman Forever, actually spent part of his childhood living in a van. What makes this story even sadder is the fact that Jim was actually born into a lower middle-class family with an average income. His father worked as an accountant and a musician, and all was well until he lost his job. The family lost their home when Jim was only young and eventually moved into a van for survival. At the age of 15, Jim quit school to work as a janitor in order to earn a living to support his parents. He's described himself as being very angry at the time, and we can see why. But one thing that kept Jim going through the dark times was his comedy. He eventually began doing his routine in Ontario, Canada in small clubs before he started to make a name for himself in 1979. As of 2019, Jim's net worth is thought to be in the incredibly impressive region of $150 million. This next actor was another who used his difficult upbringing as encouragement to aim high in life. Leonardo DiCaprio might not quite have lived in a van like Jim Carrey, but the area he lived in wasn't much better. Leonardo grew up very poor in a rundown neighborhood of Los Angeles. Every day he'd have to walk past a variety of illegal activities when he was as young as 3 or 4 years old. He said the crime and violence everywhere was enough to put him off of these sorts of things for life. He also struggled at school, where he was bullied. As soon as he was old enough, he begged his mom to take him to acting auditions in order to get out of the public school system and also his neighborhood. We don't know whether it was the fear of growing up down this same street or a secret hidden talent shining through, but Leonardo shot through the ranks to become the international star that he is today. Nowadays, this American actor and producer is worth around $245 million. By now, you're probably thinking that it's pretty usual for our favorite actors to have risen up from a childhood surrounded by crime and poverty, and Mark Wahlberg is another who did just that. However, unlike some of the other celebrities on this list, Mark fell foul to the unlawful behaviors around him and was in trouble with the police by the age of 16. Mark was the youngest of 9 children, and his parents were under a lot of pressure to properly feed and clothe so many kids at once. Without a stable family environment, Mark found solace in violence and was charged with attempted murder at the age of 16. But after sensing he'd hit rock bottom, Mark vowed to rise above a life of crime and instead enter the world of music. His brother Donnie had a successful band called New Kids on the Block, which paved the way into the music industry for Mark. From here, he shifted into acting and went on to play major roles in a string of incredibly successful movies. In 2006, he won several awards for his role of Sergeant Sean Dignam in the thriller Departed, and in 2010, he co-produced the HBO period drama series Boardwalk Empire. His current net worth is around $225 million. How's that for turning your life around? Let's take a break from talking about actors and move into a different industry, writing. While she might be known all over the world now and has a salary to match, J.K. Rowling hasn't always been rich. The author of the Harry Potter series grew up in England with a difficult family. Her teenage years were particularly stressful as her mother was suffering a 10-year battle with multiple sclerosis, which took a toll on the whole family. J.K. Rowling actually started writing the famed series 6 months before her mother's death, but never actually mentioned it to her. It was this regret that pushed J.K. Rowling to make Harry Potter suffer the death of his parents, too. And things didn't get much easier for this author for a while. A single mother without a job, she relied on the state for welfare payments to make ends meet. Her mental health suffered as she brought up her daughter in a cramped flat. But it was during this period when J.K. Rowling spent much of her time writing Harry Potter in cafes. Now she sold more than 450 million copies, won multiple awards, the series has been made into movies, and overall it's transformed her life. She's now worth more than $1 billion. And if that wasn't enough to prove that single moms have the power to go out there and change the world, wait until you've heard about our next rich celebrity. Justin Bieber, known for a stream of all too catchy songs, was brought up by a single mother in Ontario, Canada. At only 2 years old, Justin's mother noticed her son had musical talents and bought him a drum kit. She encouraged him to expand his musical talents, and at 12 years old, he came second place in a local talent competition. But when he wasn't performing, times were tough for Justin and his mother. His father left the family for another woman, and the family were so poor that they were forced to share meals at restaurants. Justin could never order soda because they couldn't afford it. But everything changed when Justin's mom started posting videos of her son singing on YouTube. Soon enough, millions of fans were begging for more, and Justin was signed by Usher and became the worldwide superstar he is today. With a string of endorsements, a successful movie, and any number of popular songs, Justin is worth more than $265 million. You won't hear much about Justin's family or his difficult past in his lyrics, but if you listen carefully to the lyrics of another star with a poor childhood, you might find out a little bit more. Sean Corey Carter, better known as rap genius Jay-Z, was only 12 years old when he was selling illegal substances on the street in order to make money. Growing up in Brooklyn, New York, times were tough for young Jay. His father walked out on the family when Jay was only 11 years old, and his older brother suffered from addiction. Jay survived the situation by taking to the streets and selling substances himself out of pure desperation. He found himself supporting his family financially in this way. But luckily, it wasn't too long before his talents shone through. Now he's sold more than 50 million albums, he's won 10 Grammys, and on top of that, he's had more #1 albums than any solo artist on America's Billboard chart. He's also used his business skills to take on everything from a clothing line to a record label, a basketball team, and even beauty products. This hustler has gone from desperately trying to make a living to having a net worth of a cool $900 million. But if there's one celebrity who really went from 0 to 100 on the poor to rich scale, it's Oprah Winfrey. As a child, her family was so poor that Oprah would wear potato sacks instead of clothes. Nowadays, she might be one of the 400 richest people in America, but it wasn't always this way. If only childhood Oprah could look to the future and see current Oprah now. Because Oprah's past was far from easy in any sense. As a child, she was shifted between family members while her mom looked for a job. When a job was eventually found, Oprah moved back in with her mom. But from then on, she suffered years of abuse at the hands of a family member as well as extreme poverty. When she was 14, Oprah went to live with her dad, who provided stability and direction like never before. It was here when Oprah started to thrive academically and socially at East Nashville High School. She left college at 19 to pursue a career in media and became the first Black female news anchor before the age of 20 in Nashville. And in 1986, The Oprah Winfrey Show took off. Now she also has her own magazine, a radio channel, and a cable channel. Oh, and a $3 billion net worth fortune, of course. That's all for 10 famous people who hustled from poor to rich. Let us know if these stories inspired you. Thanks for watching, and now go out there and do something great.